Oh, nice. Good evening. Okay, great. It's all free, right? Everything's good. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Well, we are running the webinar on Facebook in real time for the first time. So want to apologize in advance for any technical issues that may happen. Well, anyway, a recorded version of this webinar will be available, and the webinar goes all in English. But if you need some explanations in Russian, so please use chat room, and we will stop whenever possible. Well, my name is Nora, and I've been a Skyeng teacher and methodologist for almost 4 years. And I hope you're having a good evening and whenever you are. And today we're looking at pronunciation. Before we go further, I want to review the functionality of this platform. And your active participation is very important throughout the session. And also someone on staff will be managing the chat functionality. So you can enter your questions and comments in the question box, which is at the top, right? So right there, and our manager will be just putting them in the chat room then. And also the webinar takes 1 hour. So please put plus signs in the chat if the sound and picture are fine. Oh my God. Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's go to slide 2. Well, first, I would like to tell you and remind of the format of our webinar. We'll work on pronunciation of separately taken words, collocations, and whole sentences. And to understand how well you cope with those tasks, you will need to use the sound recording device. So that could be a phone or an application. So whatever is possible for you to get right now, or just you had to prepare it in advance. And thus you will be able to estimate yourself from the outside how well you work on pronunciation, basically. Okay, so next slide, please. Before we cover individual pronunciation techniques, let's talk about how much you're concerned about your pronunciation. So please rate yourself on the scale from very much or extremely to not at all. And we will find out the results a little bit later on. Okay. Okay. That's nice. All right. Interesting. Okay. Very. So the option very is leading. Okay, yeah, I can read it. All right. So yeah, well, the answer very is still a letter. And then I guess that was moderately, and then slightly, and extremely, and not at all, which moderately. Oh, very, very much nervous. Oh, please don't be nervous. I'm a little bit nervous myself every time it happens. Well, very much thank you. And so let's move on. Well, just to give you an outline of what we're going to talk about today. And firstly, we're going to look at why pronunciation is important, because it's important. And then having a look at ways how to learn English pronunciation. That includes individual sounds or phonemes. Then looking at the problems of sounds versus spelling, which is obviously one of the biggest issues. And finally, just some information how we can improve your pronunciation outside class and inside as well, of course. So the pronunciation is really, really much important, and I think like we should get a better insight into that. Okay, let's move on. Well, okay, yeah, pronunciation is very important, agree? And well, first impressions are so important. Your speaking is the first thing that people notice when they meet you. Okay, hi, okay, so just like you have to open your mouth and say something. It's so important that how you sound, and if you speak well. First part of this is your pronunciation. Even the best word can sound very bad because you make them sound bad. It's you, and only you can make them sound bad. And when you talk to a person in real life, they may notice your may not notice your limited vocabulary, if it's a beginner or elementary, whatever, or your grammar mistakes, but they will notice right away if your pronunciation is good or bad. That's why it's so important. So if your pronunciation is poor, they will think of you as a guy or a girl who speaks bad English, and good grammar and vocabulary won't help you. Agree? Okay, hopefully yes. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm speaking English because we are basically here to talk about how to improve our pronunciation and how to speak better. So, and for those of you just joining us, welcome, yes, to our webinar. And the topic is actually improving pronunciation in English. And well, good pronunciation should be one of the first things that you learn in English. You can live without advanced vocabulary, and you can use simple words to explain yourself, to say what you want to say. You can live without advanced grammar too. You can use simple grammar structures instead. But there is no such definition, or there's no such thing as a simple pronunciation. How to simplify my pronunciation? No way. So if you don't have good pronunciation, that means that you have bad pronunciation. Sorry. Well, and the consequences of bad pronunciation are quite tragic. Well, I don't want to exaggerate, but anyway, even if you use correct grammar, people might simply not understand what you want to say. So think that doing pronunciation work in class and outside class increases your self-confidence and your also communicative ability. And polishing the way you speak can help in countless ways, not at least all, but your confidence, and it can also increase your chances of getting a better job or a good job, and just generally make you sound intelligent, refined. But also just keep it in mind that don't polish too much. Don't be very pushy. You still want to hold to some features, some, specific charming features in your diction that makes you talk unique in your own way. So you don't want to learn how to pronounce any new or difficult words correctly. So you shouldn't worry much about your accent, because the best accent is your own accent. That's what I'm telling you. So if you're ready, you can communicate in English with people from other countries. That's great. It's a big achievement. Now you should ask yourself 2 questions. Is my English easy to understand? Or is my English pleasant to listen to? Well, I can see that there are some technical issues going on. Well, I'm so sorry to hear that. Okay, yes. I'm so glad you agree with me. So in my own experience, students often feel self-conscious about their pronunciation in general. And this is very interesting because I think students judge more on the accent than pronunciation. They say oh, his pronunciation is bad, his pronunciation is good. He's got British accent, he's got American accent. Or also they also judge on how many grammar errors they make, or if they pick up the wrong word. So pronunciation mistakes can make them difficult to understand. And it's important to focus on pronunciation in every class or any time you learn the language. Let's go to the next slide then. So why it's so hard to improve? It's good news. Yes. It's very good you understand my English. Very happy to hear that. Okay. Yeah. All right. So why so hard to improve? Let's take the letter A. Very simple one, right? And the first one. So listen carefully to these three English sounds. A, R, A. The same letter, three different sounds. So depending on your language, and it may sound like first, second, and third may sound like three versions of the same letter. However, to a native speaker, they're different. It's like the colors red, green, and blue. So why do native speakers actually feel that these are different sounds? And they are not the variations of the same letter or of the same sound. So they're very different sounds. Because in English, the choice between A, R, and A is functionally important. It can determine the meaning you express, what you're basically saying. So there are some sounds in English that don't exist in other languages. Slavonic accent. That's okay. Your accent is actually not important. Pronunciation. That's what makes a big difference. Okay. So English, like any language, has its own set of sounds from which all words are made. So this set of sounds is called a phonology. And if you want to speak English well, you have to teach yourself to recognize, right, in sentences and words, and pronounce the set of English sounds and learn to make new sounds too. It's not just to listen, it's enough to listen for the first time, but it's not enough just to listen and delay. So just have to listen out, repeat, and you also have to see how a sound is produced. Honestly, it's how it's produced. We'll come back later to that in a few minutes. So, but many of the sounds are probably the same in both languages, which is good news. So pay attention to the sounds that are pronounced the same way, like for example, T, normally pronounced most straight in most languages, in Russian too. Okay, thank you. So let's go to the next slide. Okay. Good. What's the difference between pronunciation and accent? If my D is off in front, if my R is imperfect, is it accent or very pronunciation? That or T is off in front and my R is imperfect. Well, so actually, yes, that's not, well, I wouldn't call it a bad pronunciation. We just call it, like, you know, the pronunciation that you have to polish. But there's nothing to do with your accent. Your accent is probably fine. Do you pronounce basic English words correctly? Take this short test to find out. Well, we'll get 1 point for each correct answer. Okay. We'll just give you half a minute to test your pronunciation. Know yourself, you can get a piece of paper and just write down yes or no, or the same way. Okay, first yes or no, yes. Okay, I'm not going to read it, sorry. You're going to test your pronunciation yourself. Have the same short sound, okay. Second, S, okay, okay. 3, yes, so you think yes, okay. Z, all right, okay. Third, okay, let's just see, how do we pronounce third option? I can't read it. 4, yes. Okay, 3 yes as well. So they rhyme the same way. And the final, first yes, okay. And the final one, I can't see answers yet. Okay, equals, right. Final yes. Okay, fine. Oh, no. Okay, yes. No, okay. Interesting. Okay, let's move on to the next slide and check yourself. So now you can check yourself. So if they are pronounced the same way. All right. I'm not going to comment it because that's what you do on your own. Oh, okay. Okay. So I think like we can go to the next slide, and thank you for completing the test. So, and now please write down your results so that we could see how much you have completed and if you have completed them correctly. Okay. So don't forget that you got 1 point for each correct answer. Okay. Interesting. So 0, almost none. Okay. So there would be, okay, 3 of them. Okay, 73%. Yeah, I'm reading it. Okay, then 4, actually, 4 options. Okay. So option 4 is leading, and now it's got 77%. So that means that, well, you got 3 points for each correct answer. Well, nice. That's really nice. And it's a good result, I guess. So let's move on to the next slide, which is sounds. And yeah, that's sounds and how to learn English pronunciation, because it's, you know, it's made up of sounds. And the first question is, and the prior one is, how to learn to recognize all the English sounds. All. So spend some time playing with their English sound chart. So, and the English sound chart is going to be on the next slide so that you can see how it looks like. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. Yeah, here it is. So this handy chart contains their pronunciation symbols used in modern English dictionaries. And for each sound, it gives first the symbol from the International Phonetic Alphabet, which is IPA, and is used in phonetic transcriptions in modern dictionaries for English learners. So, and the chart represents British and American phonemes with only one symbol, and it means 2 different phonemes in American and British English, and 2 English words which use the sound, like the same sound. And the underline shows where the sound is heard. Well, the links label AM and BR play sound recordings where the words are pronounced in American and in British English. And the British version is given only where it's very different from the American version. So from time to time, when you hear an English word, ask yourself, what sounds did I hear? How would it transcribe this word with phonetic symbols? And if you're not sure, just look the word up in a dictionary. So studying English sounds feels a bit unnatural. I understand. And why can't I just listen to English? Yeah, you may ask me, why just can I listen to English and that's it? So who said you can't? You can, of course you can. It's quite possible that you will figure out consciously or unconsciously what the sounds of English are. But why not just speed up? listening to some examples of English sounds doesn't take that much time, right? Okay, slide 11, please. Different kinds of English have also different pronunciation. Okay, yeah, the test. Oh, thank you so much. Okay, thank you if you agree. And for example, the pronunciation, or okay, let's call it the accent of British English is different from the pronunciation of American English. And the most frequently learned kinds of English in the world are American English and British English. American pronunciation. So when people talk about learning American pronunciation, learning American accent, they mean learning General American. Because General American is the accent that most often speak on national television or in the United States. And American pronunciations in dictionaries are also based on Gen Am, an General American. So it's basically 20% of what you hear on American TV, radio, podcasts, movies, web videos, conferences, etc. So it's all General American pronunciation. So, and General American pronunciation, what is more to know, it's erotic R sound, which means that this letter R is always pronounced. Car. British pronunciation. When people talk about learning British pronunciation, they usually think of received pronunciation, RP. So received pronunciation is a pronunciation of the British upper class, people who went to universities like Oxford or Cambridge. So this is the pronunciation that you will learn at British language schools. It's also the role model that is taught in course books and dictionaries from publishers like Oxford and Longman. Most normal Britons, they speak with their local accents, as far as I know. So, and if you go anywhere else, so you'll talk to people on the street, you will most likely to hear something very different from that perceived pronunciation. So, but it could be very hard, to understand, to untrain the ears, well, at first. And received pronunciation is the British accent you will usually hear in popular British films and TV shows, especially those made for the international market. Well, received pronunciation, the British pronunciation, is non-rhotic, which means that the letter R is usually silent unless it's followed by a vowel. So most received pronunciation speakers, they also insert an R in the phrases like idea is, car. Can you spot the difference? Car. But the received pronunciation speakers, that R, which they put in the phrase like the idea is, but and it just becomes the idea is. Law and order. So this R is not in the spelling, but they just use it to separate two vowels. To choose between American and British pronunciation, you need to answer two simple questions. Which one will be more useful for you? And which one will be easier to learn? Just go for it. That's up to you. Thank you. Let's move on. Okay. Well, actually, you have to get in the habit of checking the pronunciation of English words. When you're speaking, you're not sure how to pronounce something, don't guess, right? Because English pronunciation is very tricky. While you're reading English, keep asking yourself, do you know how this word is pronounced? Like you're reading. Okay, do you know how to read it? How to know how to pronounce that? So which sounds does it contain? If you're not sure, again, look it up in a dictionary. Listen and notice. Get some spoken input. Television, shows, podcasts, movies, audiobooks, anything. So, and because when listening, pay attention to how sounds and words are pronounced. And think about what sounds you hear. And when you listen to non-native speakers, you can also notice their mistakes. What is guess? Guess it means you can guess. Guess it means if you're not sure what it means, just don't guess. Don't think that you can know. You can read it. Okay, thank you. Also, practice pronouncing English words and phrases from time to time. Practice can take many forms. So you can just practice that in a systematic way. There could be a 15-minute session with a dictionary or some online pronunciation exercise, whatever. So, but the most important thing is to do it regularly, the way you will make steady progress then. Also consider learning the pronunciations of the most common English words in a systematic way too. So you also can get a list of most frequent words and look up their pronunciations, or you could use like our English listening software that teaches you to the pronunciations of the most frequently used English words and makes you remember them. And you can see that on the next slide. And that is called listening. Just hold on a second, please. No, oh well. Okay. Here it is. Well, this is basically our English listening software, and it's for those who feel that they need more practice and listening. So it's available on for iOS and Android, and it contains 35 topics and 3 accents, which is British, American, and international. So sometimes I call it clubbish. And 3 levels of complexity and exercises to check listening comprehension, which I think very convenient. Thank you. Let's move on. All right. The problematic sounds. Well, here what you can see, it's an example of pronunciation section from our platform Beambox. And I picked one very simple warning from the beginner level to show you how the pronunciation work is done in class. And this one works on problematic sounds A and E. We have a very simple system here. So firstly, you listen to our teacher saying the difference between the sounds, and then students look at the pictures and listen and repeat the words and sounds by themselves. So short vowel sound E, like in fill, fish, it, Italy, Mexico. And you can repeat after me, just, well, alongside the webinar. And a long vowel sound E, as in she, we, even, need, 3. Thank you. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. Yes, they're familiar because they are from our platform. Okay. So how it works? Well, as I told you before, that's really important to see how it actually works. So look first at the yellow line, and it's a short A vowel sound. So this is short and low. Mouth doesn't move much. The tongue in the middle is not touching the top or the bottom, and it's just in the middle towards the front. Not doing much. Yeah. So some common mistakes are like ease or eat. Is, it, is, it. You can repeat after me. Now look at the blue line. The long E is in many words. You really have to make an effort to say it correctly. E. And the main thing is to move your mouth to smile. E. While you say the sound. E. Make it white. That's okay. E. So it's not really long actually, that's quite short, but like just make it like you're smiling. E. All right? The presentation is out there. Okay. So let's move on then. Okay. Great. Now get ready to record yourself. There are some sentences for it, but make sure that they flow well and you don't drop them off in the middle, but you really say them. And if your level is lower, like beginner or elementary, just try to get the correct E and E sounds. That might be difficult at first, but as you know, everything takes time. Okay, here we go. And you can repeat after me and record yourself. I need to see my feet. I need to sneeze. Read my book, please. Give me the key, please. Come here and sit. If you stay, I will stay too. I'm really busy at this minute. She will give us the bill. They missed the winter. Sometimes these sentences make no sense. Just don't pay attention to. Okay. Hopefully that worked. Thank you. Okay, let's move on. Well, another common example of problematic sounds is the difference between O and And again, I noticed that many English learners find it challenging too. O, Well, as you can see, I also picked like the, very colorful slide from our platform Beambox. And first you can see that there is some brief explanation from a teacher. And then basically that's the task on pronunciation and the difference between these two sounds. And it's called like pronunciation model. And here you just first listen to the teacher's explanation, then you just listen to the sounds and then practice that yourself. Okay, this one comes from the intermediate level. Yeah, the first one was from the beginner level, and this one is from intermediate. Okay, so let's move on. Thank you so very much. So basically how it works. So long vowel sound O. The sound with rounded lips, O, O. So most languages use this sound too. Court, court, score, ball, draw. And sound is a vowel too, but it's a lot like the R consonant, R. And the tongue comes up a little bit in the back, and the back of the tongue is touching the back of the throat. And this, the sound is standing up in the middle of your mouth. Bird, serve, hurt, work, world. Thank you. Okay, let's get some practice. Next slide, please. Thank you so very much. So let's practice. Again, say them fluently and say them in a flowing way. Repeat after me, please. Do you want to fix the door or the floor? It was boring to swim to the shore. He sort of snores. We didn't receive a formal order. Can I have more of that warm soup? They were at work early. I prefer to use words. It's your turn to search for them. Sir, is this research complete? I have some concerns regarding this person. All right. Thank you. Let's go to slide 21. Well, as you know, English is not a phonetic language. Yes, not at all. So a lot of words don't sound how they are spelled. And not surprisingly, this is very confusing. So let's say in Russian, the letter O. O, okay. So it's always, pronounced the same way. And in English, it's definitely not. So first you need to be aware of what are the most sounds for each letter. And it will be helpful to learn useful sound and spelling rules. Okay. And sometimes a spelling rule matches a sound, but sometimes it doesn't. So in school, we try to give our students sort of basis how to pronounce common sounds. Next slide, please. Well, this is actually what I've just told you, and you have also to, thank you so much if you agree. Yeah, it's a verb. Okay. So yes, it's non-phonetic by any means. And don't think that the letter or is always pronounced the same way. And it's basically when you learn the most sounds for every letter, as I mentioned before, like when it's the letter A, and there would be 3 different sounds and not the variations of the same letter. A, R, and E. Also, don't neglect the spelling rules or sound rule or spelling rules. They're very important. Thank you so much. And here are some examples. So let's move on. Okay, yeah. Well, so I'm going to look at the letter G, which has 2 main pronunciations, J and G. So the voice sound J, as in Germany, large, joy, educate, age, and judge. Sorry, I can exaggerate a little bit just so that you can hear out that, pronunciation. So you make the G sound by releasing the air, J, J, and voicing the sound, J. It is similar to the way the D sound is made, D, J, D, J. And G sound, as in girl, go, egg, big, single, and dog. And we usually say the ending ag as h, as in message, luggage, village, sausage, manage. So the G sound is a voice sound because the vocal cords here, they vibrate when you make the sound G, G, girl, girl, okay? D plus U spelling. When the letter D is followed by the letter U, as in educate, so it's sometimes pronounced as a G sound, like in this words, educate again, schedule, procedure, graduate, individual. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, yeah, good. So now say the sentences out loud. Repeat after me, please. The gentleman from Germany had a procedure in June. In July, I will educate the cheerful child in Chinese and German. Just apologize to the teacher for touching the G. Imagine a giant, gentle witch with an H. I think I like to speak the English language. I lost my luggage in Argentina in August. The hungry gorilla likes oranges. My grandfather's from a village in Egypt. I'm so sorry, I can repeat that. The gentleman from Germany had a procedure in June. Thank you. In July, I will educate the cheerful child in Chinese and German. Better? Just apologize to the teacher for touching the giraffe. Imagine a giant, gentle witch with an itch. Yeah, sounds like. I think I like to speak the English language. I lost my luggage in Argentina in August. The hungry gorilla likes oranges. My grandfather's from a village in Egypt. Thank you. Let's move on. Too fast, I'm sorry. I was trying to be slow. Okay. Next slide, please. Just waiting. Okay. So the letters or. Okay. Moving on. Then there's another one that causes problems with the letters or. As you can see, there are 3 ways we say the letters or. And the long or, as in organized, morning, divorced. And the schwa or, forget, opportunity, stubborn. And like again, I sometimes exaggerated. And worse, world, workaholic. So you can actually put up the correct options yourself. So which is correct, schwa sound, correct. The worst, information, snoring. Please repeat. Worst, gorilla, gorgeous, boring, motorbike, homework, unfortunately, uniform, mirror. Thank you. Please next. Now say the sentences out loud. Repeat after me. Unfortunately, it wasn't the correct information. The enormous, stubborn gorilla is still snoring. He's a boring workaholic, but he's very organized. After he got divorced, things got worse and worse. How much is that gorgeous motorbike worth? All right. Thank you. Let's move on. Hopefully that worked well for you. So how to learn English pronunciation and linking words. What is it? Let's move on and see the pictures first. Yes. Okay. That's what I wanted to show you. So it's basically between sounding like a robot or sounding like a native speaker. Well, learn it. If you want to understand and speak spoken English better, and especially if you're going to do the international exams like IELTS, TOEFL, and TOEIC, etc. So connected speech will really help you with the listening and the speaking section. It's called chunking. Talking in a rhythm that delivers chunk of words with short silences in between. So good public speakers often use this skill. We'll just take a closer look at that a bit later. Okay, next slide, please. Mother is a boring workaholic. Yeah, all right, yeah, no, tricky part. I want you to try reading it aloud to yourself. Yeah. Yeah, it's a funny thing between a patient and a doctor. Yeah, please. Just giving you a few seconds. Okay. No, just please, can you? Thank you. So that would sound like doctor, I've got toothache, and earache, a sore eyes, bruised arms, a stomachache, and I fart all the time. I see, perhaps you'd like to wait in the corridor. I mean, it's all clear, right? Thank you. Let's move on. Yeah, that's funny. But basically, that's how it should sound. Another example. So what's the misconception, basically? You can't write it the way that what you hear and how you should sound. So here you can see how consonant or consonants, salt and pepper, are migrating to the beginning of the next words. Salt and pepper. Well, because it is T, the T is drawn to the following noun, saltum, and the and is weak because the word and is weak. So it's the schwa sound and it's stated into M, saltum, plus elision, which is the emission sound or syllable when speaking. I'm, let's, salt and pepper. Okay, does it go well? Yeah, exactly. Thank you, salt and pepper. So the sound changes. Pepper, which is the schwa sound. Next slide, please. Let's get some practice. Again, you can read it out loud to yourself and read what's in the kitchen. Salt and pepper, a loaf for sliced bread, an apple and an orange, 1 potato, frozen peas, fruit cake, green beans, 6 eggs, a tin of sweet corn. Salt and pepper, a loaf for sliced bread, an apple and an orange, 1 potato, frozen peas, fruit cake, green beans, 6 eggs, a tin of sweet corn. If a bit faster. Thank you. So first slow, then a bit faster. Okay. Thank you. Let's move on. Well, this schwa sound occurs at the end of the word if it ends with, for example, an ER, AR, OR, like teacher, doctor, lawyer, etc. So you can, again, practice with me. Yeah, like teacher, doctor, lawyer. And again, like which one you go for, American or British. So this is between want coffee. If you simply say want coffee, I think like anybody can understand that you want a coffee or I want a coffee. But because I and a are weak forms, so we don't stress them. I want a coffee. I want a coffee. I want a coffee. I want a coffee. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Read a book. Read a book. Read a book. Read a book. What are you going to do? Don't sound like a robot. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Read a book. Read a book. Read a book. Read a book. Thank you. Next, please. So how to learn English pronunciation? And that is very important because you have to focus on the stress, right? And intonation. So whether you're paying attention to it or not, the musical element of a language is essential to good pronunciation. So you didn't need to become a musician or listen to more music in English. And it's, so you can actually, well, pay attention to the intonation of native speakers. So it's the melodic pattern of the language and how the words are connected. Let's move on. And the word stress. Well, the word stress it's basically because English is a stress time language. That means that some words are stressed and others are not when speaking. And generally, they're called content words such as nouns and principal verbs, and they're stressed, of course, like want coffee. While structural words as article, right, or helping verbs are not. And in this example, you can read it. Hi, what are you doing when I ran an hour ago? So content words are hi, doing, ran, an hour. And structural words are what, were, you, when, I, and ago. They are weak. So you have 4 bits. Hi, what are you doing when I ran an hour ago? And just don't forget to take a pause. Hi, what were you doing when I ran you an hour ago? Thank you. Let's move on. So let's practice actively and decide how the word indicated would change the meaning of the following sentences when using the strong form. So practice saying it, just alternating between weak and strong forms. I am an English teacher in Portland, Oregon. I'm an English teacher from Portland, Oregon. He said that she should see a doctor. They were able to find a job despite the difficult market. Do you know where he comes from? But that would, of course, sound more naturally. Do you know where he comes from? I'll give the assignments to them. She's one of our most valued students. I'd like Tom and Andy to come to the party. So as you can see here, well, I would say that it just changes completely. Like, I am an English teacher. So because that is true, yeah. And although you maybe not believe it, and teacher from Portland, Oregon, that's my home city, yeah, and that's where, but it's not necessarily where I live or where I teach now. So that's about word stress. Thank you. Let's move on. Well, that is about intonation, and you can check out this video a bit later and see how it actually works and why intonation is very important. So check out this video of an Italian group singing in words that don't exist. And the funny part is that it totally sounds like English, but their speaking is actually unintelligible. But if, let's say, if I didn't say that, look, you got to pay attention to that, and if you were not paying attention, you wouldn't notice the difference. Yeah, okay, so probably we can just copy paste the link for you. Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's already out there in the chat room. Great, thank you. So, and let's move on. So, and finally, how you can improve your pronunciation outside class. So it's music, imitation, and mimicry. Of course, you can always improve your English by simply imitative native speakers. Because I would say that language learning role models are people in your life who speak well and maybe who worked hard to get there. Maybe it's a teacher or a friend, maybe someone you just know. And you can also imitate people that also their specific pronunciation, native speakers, people who are naturally talented, and because they are good models to imitate. And finally, you can model the language yourself. Say the word, phrase, or sentence 2 or 3 times at normal speed, then like make it sound all naturally, and link the words and use the weak and strong forms. Don't slow it down or over-articulate. So just stay natural. You can also look for the lesson and practice exercise in our school on the platform Beambox. Next slide, please. And you can record yourself. And that's also one of the ways to tell if all your practice is working is to record yourself with a camera. It may sound weird at first, but you're gonna listen to that, and it's only you. That's very important to see how you speak, not only to hear it. Read out loud every day, exactly out loud. Because if your pronunciation level hasn't been stabilized, I don't recommend reading for more than 10 or 15 minutes because people tend to lose their concentration. And learn pronunciation of all new vocabulary, as I said before. And you may also practice with the body because practice makes perfect. Okay, thank you. So let's move on. And a final thought on pronunciation. So realizing that you already have a problem with pronunciation is actually, it's the first part of improving your English. You need to practice often for at least 30 minutes a day and noticing how the words are actually formed with the mouth comes in handy. Body, that means a friend. And when learning English, make sure just to not skip grammar, because it's also very important. That's how you build up your sentences. Thank you. And let's move on, please. And finally, I'll switch to Russian. Thank you so much. И в конце я бы хотела рассказать вам о том, как на самом деле мы в нашей школе Sky Inc. работаем над произношением, потому что это одна из самых важных, так сказать, элементов урока для успешного говорения. Наша школа сейчас это самая крупная онлайн-школа английского языка в России и СНГ. Спасибо большое. У нас действительно очень много профессиональных преподавателей. Вы видите, насколько сейчас их большое количество. Но занимается огромное количество учеников. И все они работают абсолютно, и над говорением, и над грамматикой, и над своим словарным запасом, и произношением в том числе. У нас фактически 850 тысяч проведенных уроков, что, мне кажется, эти цифры говорят сами за себя. Спасибо большое. Спасибо большое. Да, наша платформа действительно очень удобная, и вы видите, насколько там все синхронизировано, и это суперудобный формат занятий, потому что и преподаватель, и студент занимаются одновременно, и мы действительно подбираем вам преподавателя вашей мечты, преподавателя, который имеет с вами схожие интересы. Это уникальная платформа для занятий, потому что она рассчитана на каждый уровень, на проблемные какие-то вот, как скажем, вопросы, да, проблемные какие-то места, вот паузы возможно, в вашем обучении английского языка. То есть все очень синхронизировано и структурировано, и также огромная поддержка со стороны учителя и школы. И также у нас есть мобильное приложение для изучения слов. В процессе вы можете также добавлять слова в свой словарик. И, в общем-то, сам виртуальный класс, в котором проходит занятие, называется Mimbox. Да, фактически мы уже на финальной стадии. И я хочу показать вам, как это выглядит все визуально. Так выглядит наш виртуальный класс Mimbox. Вы видите, что здесь проходят занятия, да, и занятия именно задания на произношение. Вы можете кликнуть на иконку и прослушать, как же звучит это слово, можете прочитать также дефиницию, повторить опять-таки, да, и запомнить. Дальше вы обсуждаете, уже потом эти слова идут в речь, да. Ну, вот, все, очень большое спасибо. Далее мы можем посмотреть, да, что у нас также есть очень много упражнений на listening, именно на отработку listening, что является неотъемлемой частью работы над произношением. Допустим, вы можете прослушать интервью, да, и ответить на вопросы, а что же было у нас на самом деле в этом интервью. То есть мы с вами работаем абсолютно над всеми, скажем так, элементами, да, успешности в английском языке. Далее, спасибо большое, очень приятно за ваши позитивные комментарии. Это правда очень здорово. Также мы видим, что мы работаем очень много над словами и именно над обогащением до своего словарного запаса, потому что это все элементы, да, мы не можем рассматривать отдельно слова, отдельно грамматику, отдельно произношение. Все идет вместе. И здесь мы работаем уже над словами. Увидите, что есть у нас, нужно распределить по категориям, да, либо это будут фрукты, либо это будут молочные продукты. И, соответственно, если вы ошибаетесь, то вы сами можете себя подправить. Такая self-correction идет. Спасибо. О, супер, спасибо большое. И также хотелось бы сказать пару слов о нашем мобильном приложении. Как вы видите, тоже все очень синхронизировано. Добавляете слова в свой личный словарь, который тоже расписан по темам. Да. Видите, абсолютно вот все супер синхронизировано, независимо, как вы занимаетесь. Вы можете использовать свой мобильный телефон и все время быть как бы, да, вот все время слушая там слова, прослушивая наши тексты, где-то в дороге, либо дома, когда вы уже отдыхаете. В общем-то, в любое для вас время. И, пожалуйста, дальше. И у нас есть 2 бесплатных урока для новых учеников. Пожалуйста, записывайтесь на вводный урок и введите промокод Pronounce при оплате, так как это была тема нашего вебинара, поэтому, в общем-то, это даже как-то логично, да, pronounce, не забудьте. И эта акция действует до 27 июня. Также вы можете перейти по ссылке и уже прочитать там, что нужно сделать. То есть skying.ru. Да, сейчас мы тогда ссылку вам на мобильное приложение. И последнее. Подписывайтесь на наши группы. Мы абсолютно есть везде, потому что мы хотим быть все время, да, на связи со своими студентами. Мы есть в социальных сетях, и также вы можете читать нас в почте, можете смотреть нас на YouTube. И также не забудьте о нашем приложении Listening, где вы можете учить слова, да, в приложении, которое доступно для Android и для iOS. Так что спасибо большое. И на этом все. Спасибо вам большое за внимание, спасибо большое за этот вебинар. Было супер здорово с вами общаться. И, пожалуйста, если вам понравился этот вебинар, оставьте свой фидбэк. Будет очень приятно. Спасибо большое. Спасибо. Всем спасибо. Хорошего вечера. До новых встреч. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Yes, and the feedback from you, please. Don't forget. Thank you, Skyin, and thank you, dear students, for this amazing evening. Thank you.